everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. It is September 14th at 6:30 p.m. I'm going to start by reading our mission statement aloud. The mission of Monument Academy is to provide a challenging, content-rich academic program offered within an engaging, caring, and positive learning environment. Established on a solid foundation in knowledge, Monument Academy emphasizes academic excellence, respect, responsibility, character, and exemplary citizenship. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, everyone. I'm going to lead us into a roll call tonight. Mrs. Belisle.
Here.
Mr. Buczkowski. Here. Mr. Carley. Here. Mrs. Clinton.
Here.
Mrs. Horta.
Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. Mrs. Horta is joining us virtually this evening. Mr. Ross. And Ryan Graham is here. We do have a quorum with 7 members. We will proceed forward with our agenda tonight. Next item on the agenda are additions to board. I do have one addition to the agenda tonight, so I will go ahead and motion that we add letter G under items requiring board discussion and action, and the topic will be preschool policies and procedures.
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion on that motion, board? Ms. Belisle, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Buczkowski? Mr. Carley? Aye. Ms. Clinton?
Aye.
Mrs. Horta? She gave a thumbs up.
Aye. There's just a delay.
Mr. Ross? Ryan Graham votes aye. That motion carries. I will add letter G under items requiring board discussion action. Do we have any other additions to the agenda tonight?
Yes, I have one. I would like to motion to add school spotlight as letter C after letter B letter B is additions to and approval of agenda, and then letter C would be school spotlight.
Second. Second, any discussion on that? Hearing none, Ms. Belisle, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Buczkowski? Aye. Mr. Carley? Aye. Ms. Clinton?
Aye.
Ms. Horta?
Aye.
Mr. Ross? And Ryan Graham votes aye. Are there any other additions to the agenda tonight, board? All right, with the amended agenda, the rest is approved as distributed by unanimous consent. That will lead us into citizen comments pertaining to agenda items, and my understanding is we have no citizen comments. Next item on the agenda will be our consent agenda. Board, the minutes from I skipped right over school spotlight that we just added, so that's my apologies. Let's go to school spotlight, Mr. Carley.
All right, so every month,
And Christy is our preschool director.
Ms. Hayes, thank you for all you are doing to support Monument Academy. I know it's a big job out there every day in Carline, so thank you. All right, so I will go back to C or D now, would be citizens' comments, which we have none, so the next item on the agenda will be our consent agenda. Board, the minutes from August 10th and August 19th have been distributed to you electronically. Are there any corrections or any request for the minutes to be read aloud? None, the minutes are approved as distributed by unanimous consent. That will lead us into our reports of administration and committees. Tonight, our executive director and CFO are both absent, so if you bear with me, I'm just going to read the reports verbatim. So I'm going to start tonight with the executive director. This was given to me by Kim McClellan. So as we continue into the school year and the dynamic landscape of Monument Academy, I am pleased to provide you with a comprehensive update on our recent activities and strategic initiatives. First, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude for the hard work that our team has put forth in only a month's time. The beginning of the school year has been successful considering the different challenges the team has already faced. Strategic planning. Our strategic planning efforts have begun, and we have prioritized the subcommittee leads that will begin to develop their teams to collaborate on their key strategies for the remaining part of the school year. These subcommittees consist of key stakeholders from within the organization. As we move forward, our focus will shift towards the formulation of the detailed action plans. Our team is aiming to present the progress in our next school dashboard. Next up is October Count. Each year, the publicly funded schools in our state are included in a student October count per the Colorado Department of Education. Through this count, Monument Academy reports all K-12 students who are actively enrolled in attending classes. This count helps the state determine funding for our students and is very important to our school, the district, and to the funding of our programs. This year, the count date is Monday, October 2nd, 2023. It is crucial that your student attends school all day. Information has been provided to our community regarding what October count means and what to do if your student is sick or missing school that day. We strongly encourage all of our students to attend school on this day and throughout the October count window dates from September 25th through October 9th. If your family has any questions during this time, please contact your school's registrar. Technology Committee update. Our Technology Committee continues to work and met for the first time this school year on Tuesday, September 12th. The committee is continuing to work to enhance the learning experience for our students and prioritize communication and alignment for technology in all of Monument Academy. The committee gave feedback on the commendations and challenges that occurred at the beginning of the school year in areas we need to bring attention to before our next committee meeting in October. Clarity for parents and staff in terms of standard of use with technology was discussed. Last, the team discussed how our managed service provider, Charter Tech Services, can provide more consistent coverage in areas needed that were not well implemented at the beginning of the school year. More to come after our October committee meeting. Next is our social contract development. In our efforts to create a positive and cohesive team and school environment, we spent time at our last professional development day creating our 1MA social contract. All the staff had a valuable conversation with one another in the development of the contract. This gave everyone the opportunity to speak openly about how all Monument Academy can work together and help hold each other accountable. This document describes the shared values and expectations we have as a 1MA community. Our social contract outlines a set of core values and behaviors that we expect all staff members and community to embrace. Kendra and I will be working together to put the social contract into one poster that can be shared at both campuses and even shared with the board for all to sign. To support the successful integration of these principles into our daily operations, our teams are working together to create a team of process champions and workshops throughout school year, cultivating a workplace and community culture that values trust, teamwork, and shared responsibility. Next is our operational efficiency and the RACI model. Efforts to enhance operational efficiency have also been a key focus. We have embraced the RACI, R-A-C-I-E, which stands for Responsible, Accountable, Consulted, Contributor, Informed, Enforced model as a framework to clarify roles and responsibilities within the organization. This model empowers our teams to work cohesively, eliminate redundancies, and make more informed decisions. By adopting the RACI model, we anticipate realizing significant gains in productivity, accountability, and decision-making efficiency across our various departments and operations in the school. Next, Carline process updates. We understand that the Carline process can sometimes be time-consuming and challenging. With the Highway 105 project, it has proven to be a true challenge that our team is all working to preserve through and ensure that students and staff are safe and communication is being provided in a timely manner to the best of their abilities. We appreciate the community's patience and grace during this time and ask that you stay up to date on checking our website, YouTube page, and Parent Square following the most up-to-date information regarding the West Campus Carline. Your cooperation is greatly appreciated in ensuring a smooth and seamless Carline experience for everyone. Last, I will be presenting to the D38 Board of Education for a yearly update on Monument Academy. I will be presenting at the October 23rd board meeting. There will be a small reception prior to the board meeting for our members and the D38 board to meet one another and connect. The presentation is expected to be about 10 minutes and allowing some time for Q&A. With appreciation, Kim McClellan, Executive Director. Board, any questions on that, and I may be able to answer? All right, hearing none. Next item will be the CFO report, and once again, if you guys would bear with me, I'm going to read this one to you as well, because Glenn is not here this evening. Hello, Board of Directors. Sorry I could not be in attendance, but my wife and I will be on vacation the week of the board meeting. The following is a summary of current projects underway for the fiscal year 22-23 closeout. We are nearly finalized with the process of closing out fiscal year 22-23. This is a very detailed process of ensuring every balance sheet account is accurate as we get ready for the annual financial audit. As a reminder, we have a new audit firm this year, Holting & Company, out of Colorado Springs. A new audit firm means more work in terms of delivering many documents and information that is normally only done the first year. Our business manager, Diane, and I have already started preparing our audit work papers as we go through account by account, fund by fund, to prepare for their audit work. The audit field work was completed in July, and we received our final special ed reimbursement from Lewis Palmer District 38, which is $350,000 on August 31st, 2023. Now, we are just waiting for the auditors to complete the Lewis Palmer audit and reconcile all remaining inter-district transactions. I'm hoping that our results are very close, but there still could be a few final adjustments. Next, fiscal year 23-24 startup. The fiscal year 23-24 budget has been loaded into our financial system, SDS, which was no small task this year as we added the new account codes for the middle school. We are well into the start of the school year, and things are especially busy with the beginning of the year financial transactions. Next, payroll conversion from NetChecks to SDS. We have begun the heavy work of bringing payroll back in-house to our financial system, SDS, and canceling our contract with NetChecks. The NetChecks contract was costing us about $3,600 annually, and we desperately need to save those funds. Having the payroll in SDS allows us better financial information on a real-time basis. It's less work and less expensive. The conversion has been a little more challenging than expected. This was largely due to the fact that the prior administration created different pay calendars for staff depending on circumstances. In other words, some teachers are on a 8/1 through 7/31 pay calendar, and some are on a 9/1 through 8/31 pay calendar. This is extremely challenging for us to keep track of. Unfortunately, there is no easy fix now that some of the employees were set up that way. So we just need to keep track of them manually, which is always time-consuming. Because of this and the challenges of new staff running payroll, we did have several payroll errors that affected employee paychecks. We tried to correct those as soon as possible, but it's always frustrating when your paycheck is incorrect. We hope that the September payroll is better with fewer errors. Many thanks to our payroll team of Krista, Maureen, and Dawn as they work through these issues. Next, contracting, purchasing, implementation. The other big project we have this fall is the conversion from a manual purchase order to process to using our SDS purchasing functionality. By doing this in the system, we will be able to have more current real-time information for all schools and department heads. This will also be helpful as we empower our leadership team to better understand the finances, account numbers, and budgets for their school, program, or department. Maureen Hilborn, who manages this process for New Summit Charter School, will be playing a significant role in this implementation. Because of the challenges with the payroll conversion, we have temporarily delayed this implementation until we get payroll worked out. Next is financial statements. Timely and accurate financial statements are critical to the effective management of any business, and MA is no exception. Every month I attempt to balance the bank account as soon as I can after month end. A trusted mentor once told me if cash is reconciled and balanced to the general ledger, the financial system can be trusted for accuracy. I have finished preliminary August financial statements, and we are in the process of scheduling a financial committee meeting to review those statements. I use the word preliminary because we still have to post student activity account transactions for August. It's so nice to see almost all of our accounts below budget with the exception of business services, which is over budget due to the payroll conversion. Next is the fiscal 23-24 budget. As you know, the board adopted the fiscal year 23-24 budget in June of 23. Unfortunately, enrollment is down at all three levels, which will force budget adjustments. In addition, we have identified a few expenditure line items that were under budgeted. This was just a miss on my part since I still don't know every line item in the school's operations. We will be amending the budget in late fall and then again in January to adjust the new enrollment. Unfortunately, that means reductions to an already tight budget. We must continue our budget discipline for the fiscal year 23-24, where we teach staff to live within their budgets and make changes throughout the year in a well-documented manner with appropriate. I'm going to skip the next one, board, the energy conservation project. We'll talk more about this when we get to discussion action. The last thing on this report is investment income. We continue to maximize our investment income by proactively managing our cash and investments. Our general fund investment income for August was $14,700. Please keep in mind that we were earning about $2,000 prior to the leadership change. Added to this, President Graham and I successfully closed out our matured CD, $650,000, earning 0.8% interest at First National Bank, and reinvested those proceeds in our Integrity Bank account, earning almost 5%. A 4% interest differential on $650,000 will now earn us an additional $2,000 per month for a total of almost $17,000 per month. That's over $200,000 per year. When you add this to the special education revenue we are now receiving, we have improved our revenues by over $500,000 per year on a recurring basis. Questions on that, board? One second. Thursday. All right, that is moving us on to our board committee reports, which will start with me on Highway 105. I put together some notes that I'm just going to read aloud and share with you guys. It won't be as long as the last two, but Highway 105 update. We are almost complete with the recirculation road behind West Campus. Finishing touches are being put in this week, which will include final grading, seating, signage, and then setting light poles. The temporary fencing will be with us through the rest of the school year and will be moved according to the permanent fence placement so our students can have access to the field as well as the playground during recess. This will be after the finishing touches are completed over the next couple weeks. Folks, we will be in Phase 2 car line through December at the earliest, and then we'll move into Phase 3, which will include reopening Knollwood with a roundabout, closing of the church egress at the top of the S-curve, and closing of the temporary ingress-egress road off of Highway 105 that we are now using. For now, our families are adjusting, and I hear morning drop-off is going very well. This morning, we had our weekly progress meeting, and we were joined by a representative from Premier Vision. We want to strongly encourage our K-5 families not to arrive for afternoon pickup until much closer to 3:15. We ask you to please take heed of this. We cannot block the Vision Center patients from exiting out of their parking lot. We are working on trying to keep one lane open on Village Ridge Point in front of the Vision Center so their clients can exit out when afternoon pickup begins. Please be mindful of this as they will need to merge into car line traffic to exit out onto 105 by the church as we are. We understand this is not ideal, but this is a solution that we have to try and work with. And I also want to take the opportunity to thank the vast majority of our families that have shown patience and grace to our staff during car line. Opposingly, I understand how challenging car line can be for some parents. I understand how much of an inconvenience it can be when pressed for time. For some of our parents that feel entitled to be raped or endanger our staff, students, or other car line families, we will not tolerate those actions. I have had several conversations with our legal counsel about this issue, and I've had discussion with our board on this matter in years past. Monument Academy can and will revoke your car line privileges to be on the school property if you are doing something unsafe. We do not want to take it to that extreme, but if we must in order to protect our staff, students, and families, then we will. So I implore you to show some grace to our staff and patient through this process. This is all very temporary. That is my update for 105, Board. Next on the agenda will be the curriculum. Mrs. Belisle.
No report, except that our first meeting will be next month.
SAC Committee West, Mr. Ross.
Yes, we did have our first meeting on September 5th, and we were able to vote in our leadership with our chair as Jolinda Dygert, who's here. And vice chair is Kelly Turner, and secretary will be Christy Davis, I believe. And we set the schedule for the rest of the year as well, first Thursday at 2 o'clock every month.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Board, any questions? That'll move us to SAC East, Mrs. Clinton.
So the SAC East Committee met on Monday, September 11th for our first meeting. We reviewed the recommendations that were made by the previous year's committee to the board, as well as the SAC bylaws and officer roles. An officer election was held for the 2023-2024 school year. Mrs. Shar Sellers will be the SAC East Chair. Jolinda, you're going to be very busy, as she's also the Vice President on SAC East. Mrs. Pam Garcia was elected to the role of Secretary. Mr. Kennington and Mr. Vinchatto provided excellent principal updates regarding the middle school and high school. Our middle school is focused in on 3 areas of attention, being academics, behavior, and attendance. They're already utilizing the academic dashboarding data that was presented to the board last month to provide academic interventions where needed and support students in their academic growth. The middle school staff is also engaged in professional learning communities where they share ideas and find ways to enhance their teaching practices. I also really enjoyed learning about a new positive behavior recognition process in place, and it's called Students Exhibiting Excellence. So think of it like grown-up backpack tickets at the East Campus, where students are recognized for displaying good behavior and character. Teachers and staff can highlight those students in our middle school that are making good choices and being good role models for others. Our high school students, parents, and staff are excitedly working on ideas for building out traditions that will shape our high school experience for years to come, and also utilizing a working group to achieve a comprehensive integrated multi-year plan for retention. I am thrilled to be a part of this committee and get to work for the school year.
Thank you, Mrs. Clinton. Any board questions? Hearing none, that'll move us to governance. Mrs. Hoyda and Mr. Buczkowski.
Yes, Ryan, whoops, it's loud. I'm happy to take that, for Karen, since she's virtual. So the governance committee did set its meeting dates for the rest of the fiscal year. And we also reviewed the curriculum policies that will be part of the action items later in this meeting. We're continuing with research and drafting of policies that affect our resolution regarding privacy and protection of students from June 27th. And we hope to have something for this board to review at the next meeting.
Thank you both. Next will be finance, Mr. Buczkowski and Mr. Carley.
Yes, I'll take this. And we did not have a meeting in the last month, but I do want to call the board's attention to just 2 items within Glenn's report that Ryan read. The first is under the fiscal year 23-24 budget, that it says in there, enrollment, which I can tell you was budgeted at 1,180 students, is down at all 3 levels, which will force budget adjustments. And they've identified a few expenditure line items that we were under budget. So what's going to be really important in this next month is the October count, which is then going to reset the budget. And there might be some, some cost cutting that is going to have to occur at that point. And there's also some additional revenue that might come in as well. So just know that we're going to have to, as a board, review the budget again here after the October count. The other item I wanted to bring your attention to, want to give Ryan credit for moving the CD from First National Bank back to Integrity Bank, and that change in interest rate, and just wanted to point out that that's resulting in an additional $2,000 per month on interest on that money. So that's just a real great benefit right now.
All right, thank you, sir. Buildings and facilities will be myself and Mrs. Hoyda. I have no report tonight. Mrs. Hoyda, do you? Okay. On to RDC, resource development will be Mrs. Clinton and Mr. Carley.
No report right now, but we are looking to have our first meeting next week.
And last, on the committee reports will be the HR subcommittee, myself and Mrs. Clinton, and I have no report tonight. All right, that'll lead us into our items requiring board discussion and action. So the first item on the agenda tonight under board discussion and action will be the ACLU demand letter response. So as the community is aware, the board received an ACLU demand letter last month, and we were given a response deadline of August 31st. So on August 31st, we responded to that through our legal counsel. And so that said, for those of you that had not read or seen the ACLU demand letter, I'm going to read that first to give some context, and then I will read our response to the ACLU. So this letter from the ACLU is dated August 16th, 2023, and it was addressed to our legal counsel, Brad Miller. Dear Mr. Miller, from your public statements, I understand that you represent Monument Academy and its school board. I am writing to address actions taken by your clients that undermine the safety and well-being of transgender, gender nonconforming, and non-binary students and flout multiple state and federal laws. The ACLU of Colorado is committed to protecting all Colorado students' rights, and based on recent reports, we are deeply troubled with the actions that Monument Academy has taken. First, we understand that Monument Academy has refused to provide students access to the restroom consistent with their gender. This is unlawful. Colorado's Anti-Discrimination Act, CADA, forbids schools as places of public accommodation from discriminating against anyone on the basis of sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression, CRS 24-34-601. In particular, Monument Academy is required to allow individuals to use restrooms that are consistent with their gender identity. 3 CCR 708-1, Rule 81.9. Excluding a student from the restroom that aligns with their gender identity violates not only CADA, but also federal prohibitions on discrimination under Title IX in the U.S. and Colorado constitutions. Second, we understand that Monument Academy has enforced its dress codes in a way that impermissibly treats students differently based on sex, forces them to conform to sex stereotypes, and has been used to deny students the ability to dress and express themselves in accordance with their gender and gender identity. As you know, this too is unlawful. CADA prevents schools from requiring any student to dress or groom in a manner inconsistent with their gender identity, CRS 24-34-601. 3 CCR 708-1, Rule 81.9. Doing so not only violates CADA and federal prohibitions on discrimination in schools, but also students' constitutional rights to freedom of expression. We also are aware that Monument Academy's board recently adopted a resolution signaling its open hostility to transgender, gender nonconforming, and non-binary students, as well as to our state and federal non-discrimination laws. To be clear, given the resolution's content, its disclaimer that Monument Academy does not discriminate and welcomes all students, regardless of sex, gender expression, and gender identity, is an empty declaration. The resolution reads as an advertisement of the ways Monument Academy intends not to welcome students who are transgender, non-binary, or gender nonconforming to the district. First, the resolution sets up burdensome roadblocks to transgender and gender diverse students' ability to attend school on a full and equal basis with their peers. These discriminatory prerequisites have no basis in law. Second, the resolution announces the board's intent to out any gender-diverse student to the appropriate MA parent community and MA constituency in violation of various student privacy laws, and endorses the ostracism of any such student by encouraging others to avoid sharing facilities with them. Finally, the resolution gives power to the school over decisions that belong to the students, their families, and medical professionals by prescribing the inflexible ways a student must present and express themselves in order for Monument Academy to accept aspects of their identity at school. See, e.g., for the sake of example, Resolution 2 mandating that any transgender student must conform to the dress code of the gender that they now identify or express as with no violation. Refer immediately, mandating that any gender-diverse student transition with a change of name and change of gender in school software and records. Remarkably, these mandates appear in the same document as the board's proclaimed belief that schools do not have the right to make decisions concerning the care, custody, and control of children. The board is totally unqualified to prescribe the course of a student's transition or the contours of permissible gender expression. Any attempt at enforcing the categorical mandates in the board's resolution will violate the law. In sum, Monument Academy's actions, events, and intent to make life intolerable for transgender, non-binary, and gender-diverse students. The school has already violated numerous laws and is vulnerable to suit. Our priority is to ensure that future students and families at Monument Academy are not subjected to the same mistreatment as prior families. With the start of a new academic year upon us, Monument Academy has a chance to correct its practices and comply with state and federal law. We urge Monument Academy to begin to redress the hostile school environment it has created. Meaningful steps would include, at a minimum, retracting the harmful June 27, 2023 resolution and committing to comply with the requirements of Colorado and federal law. Please provide a substantive response to this letter by August 31, 2023. We reserve all rights to file necessary legal action to ensure compliance with Colorado and federal law. Sincerely, Timothy R. McDonald, Legal Director, ACLU of Colorado. A response to Mr. McDonald on August 31st. Mr. McDonald, thank you for your letter. I do represent Monument Academy and its school board. Your understandings expressed under paragraphs starting with first and second are incorrect. And while you are correct that the Monument Academy Board recently adopted a resolution, your characterization of that resolution, which effectively is simply an expression of parents' rights and voice in education, also is incorrect. I did not find any mention in your letter of who you purport to represent in this matter. Please do let me know if you have a client. Thank you. That is our response on the ACLU demand letter at this time. We have no litigation against us, and we will continue to hold this line. I assure you of that. We will stand firm on this resolution. Next will be MASRO Officer Ellis' presentation. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to our SRO. He has requested about 10 minutes to provide a quick presentation to you guys.
Alrighty, so as Mr. Graham stated, my name is Officer Ellis. I work for the Monument Police Department, and I am Monument Academy's School Resource Officer. Mr. Graham, members of the board, thank you very much for allowing me this time today. I just want to address a couple concerns that have been brought to my attention, mainly regarding around the Highway 105 project. As a parent, I share your frustrations, so please hear my words. I understand, okay? I met with Mr. Graham and prominent members of the school as well as with the county today, and I can't thank our partners in the county enough for helping us with this project, allowing the school expansion for this, and allowing, once we get to phase 4, which we will get there, that this will be a better process. Growing pains are going to happen. The Monument Police Department has no jurisdiction on Highway 105. It belongs to El Paso County Sheriff's Office. When it comes down to this project, the members of PPRTA that did this project, that granted the school and gave all of these things to the school to resolve this situation on Highway 105, which we're very thankful for, it's their project, and we are trying to augment and help them as much as possible. We are members of a community, and I love this community. I've been the school resource officer now here. I'm just shy of almost a year. and I absolutely love being up here. I'm out there every day. I see Christy, I see all the people out there, and I also hear the frustrations. And those frustrations are sometimes met with hostile activity. I've had parents screaming at me. We've had different things going on. And, Monday, we had to make a judgment call at the campus. There was a gas leak. We had to shut down the road. And I looked at Mr. Walker and I said, let's get these kids out of here. Let's get these kids out because safety is more important. And we started that flow. We went in the back way. We figured out a solution. Today, I feel like we made huge progress in finding that solution while putting 2 lanes of traffic. Granted, it was close together, but it worked. And we were able to file cars through the dirt lot parking lot. We were able to get more traffic in. And you may see this project going around the school and think, oh, that can fit, this many cars. Well, during my traffic study that ended up helping this organization into what they're doing now, last year, on average, the Monument Academy West Campus has 317 vehicles at drop-off in the morning. That is an average vehicle count from Monday to Friday. That's a lot of cars. I counted that I was able to fit 38 cars in the dirt lot today. We are able to line up so many cars from Highway 105 where they have the grader on the side right now, all the way into the turn lane was about 40 cars. So it's not that many that we can actually fit. We have a lot of parents that are coming very early, and it kind of causes some frustration. We'll make it work, okay? If you're there to pick up your child, I will make it work. That's what I'm there for, okay? I'm always here to help any member of the community, whether it's for your child, for the school, for any legal purposes, for law enforcement reasons. That's why I'm here. That's what this dual role and responsibility is here. My job as the SRO is to take that gap from the police department and the school and provide a bridge. That's my job, and that's why I'm here. I like to think I'm pretty decent at it, but we all make mistakes. So if there's anything that comes to your attention or something that happens, whether it's car line, frustrations with the school, I would rather you come and yell at me. People yell at me all the time, okay? I'm used to it. I can take it. I have very thick skin, okay? I have a teenager at home, so yeah, I have very thick skin, okay? Come yell at me. Do not take it out on the people that work at the school every day for your children and that are there to help. We're all here to help, but the frustrations are going to continue, and we understand that, especially once this magical white stuff starts falling from the sky and really starts messing up our roads, okay? It's going to happen, all right? My job is to keep it safe, avoid accidents, avoid the cluster, and try to make things flow as smooth as possible. In the morning, we're nailing it. I'll tell you that. We are flowing through there very, very quickly. We've got myself and the maintenance facilities coordinator, Chuck Stager, at the top, directing cars, doing 2 turn lanes. We've got Jake down at the bottom, pushing cars through, multiple teachers, multiple staff members, ensuring that not only your vehicle is protected, but above all else, the care packages that are inside of them. Because a human life is not replaceable. A vehicle is, okay? I will say that the amount of violations I have seen on that road and into the school have dramatically dropped since we've slowed car line down, okay? There's still a lot of kids that are in and out of car seats, hanging out of windows, a lot of texting and driving, speed limit stuff. That's kind of, gone down a little bit because that road kind of clusters up now. And that's good for me to see, okay? So I'm always watching for that kind of stuff. But I will tell you that if I'm not there, because I do bounce back and forth between 2 schools for now, until January, when the police department does hire our second school resource officer for this school, okay, which we're very, very excited about, me in particular. Going back and forth, it does take a lot of time, but I do it every day. I think I'm at the West Campus 3 or 4 times a day, and I'm here 3 or 4 times a day. I'm going back and forth when I'm needed. I'm helping the teachers. I'm helping the staff. But I'm also still a full-time police officer, and I'm still answering calls that I have related to school stuff, not outside of school, just school-related. But I still have other duties that I need to fulfill on top of this. I manage it. I juggle it, along with, I also coach football and stuff too. So it's been a lot of fun. I'm not going to lie. It's been an incredibly fun time. But with this environment, the things that are being brought to my attention, I have had to talk to a couple of parents. I've had to explain, hey, look, the school is working with the county. They're working with the partners of the community to make this a common goal of finishing it and being a better solution for everyone, okay? So what I'm asking for is a little bit of patience, a little bit of compassion, and a little bit of understanding for all of us involved that are out here daily, hot, cold, snow, rain, does not matter. We are outside making sure that we are looking out for you and your children. But above all else, my job is your kids, the staff, and the teachers inside the school. That's what I'm here for. So if you need something, please come and tell me, okay? You can find my information on the PD website. I guess I can just say it out loud too, it's public information. My email for the PD is mellis@tomgov.org. If you need anything, you have suggestions, you have comments, you have good things, you have bad things, share them with me. I'll be happy to share them with members of the board, with the staff, with anyone that's involved in this project. Who knows, maybe you've got the $1 million idea that could solve all of our problems. Trust me, I'm very open to it. I think, once again, we had a very good solution today, and I'm looking forward to making it through this project with all of you, and hopefully, we won't have any accidents. That's what I'm really worried about. So, but we should be fine. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please let me know. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Thank you for being out there every day. That will move us on to our Emergency Operations Procedures Review. The board, the EOP, has been distributed to you electronically, and at this time, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Kennington to present on this topic.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Good evening, board. I was asked to present on our emergency operations plan tonight, and have a small packet there if you'd like to reference some of the CRS I'll be talking about tonight and just get an overview. Talk about a purpose of this EOP as we see it, a little bit of the process, which we believe was just as important as the result, a little bit about why we're seeking board approval, and then follow on distribution, revision, and review. So first of all, this was a team effort across MA leadership in putting this emergency operations plan together, this EOP. Principals from elementary through high school, our executive director, and then in partnership with our Monument Police Department, specifically Officer Ellis. So we really appreciate all the effort that went into putting this together. The purpose of an emergency operations plan, the purpose of this document is to standardize initial responses to defined crisis. And those are two key words there. We want to standardize so it is across MA, and also its initial responses. We recognize that in an actual crisis, it's probably going to be a lot of chaos in there. This plan provides an initial response to get momentum going in the right direction. It is also intended to be a predictive and a proactive document to identify potential threats and to think about how we would respond to them before we get to that threat. A subset of this and the value that we see is actually in coordinating and communicating the plan. We recognize as we grow as a school, we have an ongoing effort to standardize our operational procedures. So that process, which I'll speak about in a moment, we felt was really important as well. So in summary, an EOP provides standard response protocols and large-scale procedural actions that personnel in each building will accomplish in the event of a crisis. So why do we have an EOP? Well, state law does require districts and charter schools to develop a school EOP. And you have a copy that's highlighted of the CRS, Colorado Revised Statute, that leads us to that. And it highlights are provided there about where emergency action plans come in place. So a couple things in there, specifically say a school safe plan. And so many schools and districts use the EOP process to establish a safe learning environment conducive to learning. And that's the bottom line, is we want to protect the environment here for our students so it's safe for them to learn. It also provides a school response framework. That's a key requirement. We do use the standard response protocols. That's the I Love You Guys Foundation, if you're familiar with that. That's pretty standard across El Paso County. It also breaks out the incident management plan of how we work through that, and that's in compliance with the National Incident Management System, or NIMS. A lot of acronyms coming out here tonight. That's through FEMA, so we are in compliance with that through this plan. Also, it delineates our exercises and our all-hazard drills. School employees, community partners, and so forth are all in the EOP. So that's the background to that and the why. The process, we believe, here of making this EOP was perhaps just as valuable as the result. It was very collaborative. We shared a lot of best practices. We adjusted how we do business, and we built on some institutional knowledge, some things about why we were doing things the way we were and why we've done that for years. The process of this began with a crisis action team that was formed last August, so over a year ago, at MA East. And the purpose of that CAT team, as we called it, was to prepare and train a team of MA staff to respond to a future crisis, so we would have a plan in place should a crisis come. We began to further develop and improve our incident command system here at East. And as we began to review our protocols, we began to look at our EOPs. And in that process, we discovered that MA did not have a current EOP at that time, and we could not locate any copies of previous EOPs that fit the requirements that were laid out by state statutes. So there obviously was informal emergency protocols that have been used for years across MA. So the value in what we saw was in coming together and standardizing those protocols between the West Campus and the East Campus and formalizing that in an emergency operation plan. So in spring of 2023, we did expand that crisis action team to include our teammates at West, and then began the process of planning and developing the current MA-wide EOP that you have in front of you. We did review some plans of sister schools, including the NASCA, so including New Summit Charter Academy. So thank you to our executive director for helping us with that. And then we submitted the final draft in June. So for tonight, we are seeking board approval for this. One is state law. It does mention that school boards will adopt and implement a school safe plan. And again, many schools use the EOP process to accomplish this. And we do desire to formalize the EOP and thus bring awareness to our plan and communicate it to a wide audience. Anticipating approval. After any questions, the distribution plan would happen after that. We did not specify a distribution list in the draft EOP, but suggested parties would include D38, sharing that with them so they're aware of our plans here. There is a note in the EOP on the sensitive material that's contained in there, and that note says that copies of this plan may be made available to entities outside of MA, for instance, parents, media, and so forth. We would recommend that some sensitive materials be pulled from that in accordance with public records law, and Mr. Graham and I have had some conversations about what that would be. So outside agencies beyond parents and media would be our first responders, Monument, Colorado Springs PD, of course, El Paso County Sheriffs and area fire and rescue departments might be interested in seeing this plan. Follow on then to that would be the revision and review process. So just a couple notes for that. The EOP that you have does represent this team's best and most concerted effort to produce a comprehensive document. However, we do realize that it is a work in progress. The process of emergency preparedness is never done, and we recognize that. So we're always looking for ways to improve and get better at what we do. So speaking for the whole CAT team, I would fully expect there would be ongoing revisions to that. We do invite input. We want improvement. Critique is welcome. It is appreciated there. The actual revision process is delineated in the EOP. I won't go into that here tonight, but if you wanted to see how that lists that process, it's in there. Finally, the review process for the EOP. It is an annual process, so we would typically do this in the spring and summer to have an EOP ready and for review before August of the next school year. And pending any guidance from the executive director of the board, we would probably initiate that through the crisis action team, pull everyone together, K through 12 admin, SRO, ops, and so forth, to get that review process in. Okay, so that's a snapshot there. Any questions for me?
I don't have questions, but I just want to thank you both. I know Mr. Vinchatto's not here tonight, but this has been really great to review and have this in place for our school. So thank you for working on all of that.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kennington. Well done on this, very thorough, detailed. I know a lot of time and energy went into this, so thank you and the team for doing this over the summer, essentially. So you're welcome, sir. Board, any questions for Mr. Kennington?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Kennington, yes, for getting all this together. It's very comprehensive. My only question is, there are certain required elements of these plans per the Colorado Revised Statutes. Was there a review done, or did this go in front of legal to make sure that we check the box of all of the elements that are required by statute?
Great question, Mr. Buczkowski. Thank you for asking. We did not submit that to legal.
Well, I was going to make a motion to approve this, but I'm going to go ahead and just open this up to some discussion real quick. How would you like to see this move forward? We could adopt it tonight and have legal review it. Any changes could be brought back to us.
You know, there are a couple of things going on here. One is that we have to have a plan. And it's really a best practice to have the plan, plus it's also required. So we've had these informal policies that have been basically cobbled together and then improved to get to where we are. As I sit here thinking about it, I think probably the best thing is to pass what we have. It's going to be a living document anyway. And then we can do a review just to make sure every statute is checked off the list.
All right, with that said, I'm going to motion then to approve the 23-24 emergency operations procedure as presented tonight.
Second.
That will now open us to further discussion. Mrs. Belisle. Mr. Buczkowski. Mr. Carley.
Aye.
Mrs. Clinton.
Aye.
Mrs. Hoyda.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
And Ryan Graham votes aye. That motion carries. The EOP is now in place. That will move us on to our 23-24 employee handbook, board, that has been distributed to each of you electronically as well. And at this time, I will turn it over to Mrs. Pelly to present on this topic.
When I see a green light, I think it's time to go. Okay, so for the most part, what we did with the staff handbook that I really want to really focus on, mainly because it does impact the way in which they're paid and the way in which they're allowed to request time off, is that employee leave portion of it. Joshua Miller and I combed through this very carefully. The dilemma that we were presented with was kind of what we were working with previous years. And so what had happened is there was no differentiation between sick leave and personal leave. So when I went through SDS and I found that it had all been lumped together, there was no way for us to differentiate between the two. And so according to Colorado labor laws, you can't pull compensation from someone, so I had to lump that all together as personal leave and not delineate anything to sick leave. With that being said, there's a large payout that goes when people leave. And so what we were able to do is create a cap for last year. So if you remember on last year's, we had 160 hours that they could basically get paid out on. Reason being, if everyone were to have left with that amount accumulated, we would have had a problem, let's just put it that way. Thankfully, not very many people left, but we were also able to cap that out on how much we had to pay out, because personal leave is considered wages earned. Sick leave is not. Although sick leave is paid, it's not compensation. So with that, what we did is we went through and we figured out which employees would be grandfathered in. We did not include that in the staff handbook because that's going to be a separate, just a separate policy, because it's not going to be something that's instituted year after year after year. So within that, what we did was we did a quick analysis on the labor laws and made the adjustments necessary. So now, according to Colorado labor laws, personal leave does not have to be paid out monetarily, but it is still considered compensation. And so what we are doing is anyone who exceeds the 80 hours that we are going to allot as a cap, they won't get any personal leave granted to them until, of course, they go below that. So if someone were to start the year off with 81 hours, for instance, once they took that 1 hour or that 2 hours, they would get replenished that to meet the max that each employee would get. I understand this is like, believing me, we sat there like rubbing our temples. But when we cap it at 80, that means that no one can take any more than 10 days. And then we can actually say, you're not going to get paid out for that, but you can use that personal leave. The idea behind that too is to encourage them to actually take leave, because it's good for people to take breaks. Now, by Colorado labor laws, everyone is entitled to sick leave, and so we will give them up to that 48 hours of sick leave, so that's across the board. What we did do is we kind of differentiated the way in which we were going to basically give personal and sick leave. So for people who have been here longer, they'll get more hours of personal leave and fewer hours of sick leave or days. So anyone who's been here 6+ years, they'll get 4 days of personal leave. And then they'll get 8 days of sick leave. Everyone will get 12 total days. And so that's almost to incentivize that retention. With that, we did change it from quarter-hour increments that they could request off to half-hour increments. And that's just because it's really hard to do quarter-hour increments. We did change the way our work calendars went, and that does weigh into this. So anyone that is 220 days or fewer, which is everyone but 3 of us, so there's only 3 employees that are 252 days, which is a full calendar year without national holidays, they're going to get that 80-hour cap. Everyone who is at a 252, they're going to get 22 days of personal leave. We had it set to 20 days vacation, 2 days personal, but vacation and personal is synonymous. So there's no difference. So we just went ahead and lumped that all in. The reason I really want to pull this to the attention is because this is the portion of the handbook that we'd love to get solidified so that we can get employee leave put into SDS so that people can start really taking their leave and knowing exactly how much they have. I hate that feeling of, well, I don't know, can I take a day off? So that would be the portion that I would love for the board to really fixate on and really read through carefully. With that, there was one other change with the FMLA, and that was removing bereavement, because bereavement now is considered under sick leave. So please know we weren't being cruel. The next one, and again, I know everybody really wants me to read all of this, and I would love to, but we are going to venture down to where we talk about purchase orders and financial information. With that, Kim and I read over all of the information that was in the employee handbook. It was significantly outdated. So we have in there all of the different policies that the school was operating under. At this time right now, I'm going through and I'm checking the district G policies, I'm checking D20's G policies, and I'm checking other charters to do a cross-reference to make sure that Monument Academy is able to establish some G policies so that we can then translate those over, which will help with our staff handbook because it's going to make it a more tangible, solidifiable document. Not just a staff handbook, but actual policies that we're able to implement that the district then is also able to honor. With that, all of the purchase orders, all of the financial stuff, we have to consult Glenn and the finance team. Because with us going back over to that SDS, we need to really set things up. We're giving teachers their budgets. We're allowing teachers to make purchase orders in a different way. And we don't want to do any more reimbursements. It gets really sticky when you're working with a 501c3. So you really want to protect that. So all of the money collection, the cash receipts, the purchase orders, the reimbursement procedures, and so on and so forth, that's going to have to go through Glenn and the finance team, along with Kim and me. The only other thing that I have, and that I'd love for you guys to really look into, is all of the things that are crossed out, which is a lot. It looks like a red line, I don't know, party or something. I did take out everything that was procedural. The principals did a lovely job of creating procedure handbooks for the staff. So anything that is a procedure and not a policy, I've removed unless the procedure contributes to the policy. And so there's a lot that was removed from this. I also wanted to make it a document that teachers could actually go to and use as a resource, and would actually completely read with a full understanding of it. Lastly, there are so many board policies that have to go through that will also affect this. So curriculum, the movies, everything that you guys are discussing as to what you think is the criteria and the level that you would like this to look, that's the way that it will be implemented, and it may not end up needing to be in this particular handbook. But I'm going to leave that for the committees to decide on how you feel like that should be used. Other than that, everything kind of comes down to process procedure and the elimination of some things that the principals did give me a beautiful hand in kind of skimming through. Other than that, if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Karen, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I had some concerns that I wanted to raise with the board, specifically looking at pages 16 and 17 when it comes to conflict resolution. I noticed that with regard to the paragraphs there and the levels, level 1, 2, 3, and 4, the language there mandates certain activities take place. And I believe that's in conflict with our governance policy, our board policy 1518A, which has language that's a little softer, such as when reasonably possible, or should instead of shall, or may instead of must. So I think we need to look at either taking the language in this handbook and having it mirror our policy, or we need to have further discussion about whether or not this should be mandated activities. Level 4 even includes mandated activities by the board. So I want to make sure the board is aware of that and raise it for discussion.
I love that you brought that up, actually, because this was the one that was set up that I hadn't touched. So this has been in place for a while. So I'm glad that you were able to kind of look through that, because sometimes when something's in place, you don't want to touch it if it hasn't been brought up. So I think that's a great thing to bring to the table.
All right, thank you both. Mrs. Horta, you are correct on the level 4 in regard to policy 1518A. The question becomes, how do we address this tonight if the board would like to do that? And
Yeah, I might propose, again, for discussion is with regard to the section on conflict resolution, we just say see board policy 1518A. If for some reason we need to adjust that policy, we certainly can through the governance committee and bring it back to the board. But rather than have documents that conflict, I'd much prefer that we go with what's currently a policy and we can make changes through that.
I agree. So to your point, Mrs. Horta, we could just do a strike through of the entire conflict resolution and just say see policy Board of Directors, or Monument Academy Board of Directors policy 1518A.
I would recommend that. I'm, again, open to discussion from other board members.
My only question would be, is that easily accessible to all staff to get a hold of those policies and understand what the steps should be?
It is. Policy 1518A was last updated, I believe, in 2020. I don't have it in front of me, but it is on our website. It is accessible by pretty much anyone, including members in the community, if they chose to open that up and look for it.
And actually, I was just combing through all the board policies and the links, and one of the things that we are noticing is some of the links aren't working, so we're working with our tech department to make sure all of the board policy links are active and up to date. That was one of those that I wanted to make sure, because I do want everybody to have access to that. That should just be public knowledge for sure. The other one I was going to ask you guys about that is a board policy is the teacher representative. And so I have had teachers come to me and ask me, we just don't know what our purpose would be. and there are stipulations to that. I know it was updated in 2021, but I know they were kind of wondering are they acting just as a liaison, or would you guys like feedback from them? And so I think maybe just taking a little bit of time to review that, just to see if you guys are satisfied with that, or if you would like to add or take away. That was just brought to my attention by teachers.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. Spelly, but that is not mandated in the employee handbook that we have to
Not
have
at
a teacher
all.
rep. It just says we encourage it.
Yes, absolutely. And that was just one they were like, well, we just weren't sure. So I just figured I'd bring it to your attention. The last thing I will tell you is we did include, actually, the last two things I will tell you, we did include for all volunteers to get a thorough background check. So we are making sure that anyone and everyone who has any access to kids, whether it be volunteering in the classroom or going on field trips, that they are background checked. And so that before they are even allowed in, they have to go in and they have to clear that background check. And that's been very useful. And then the only other, was with teacher-student communication. So we did add a couple of things to this portion, and I'd love for you to read through it and see if there's any language that you feel could be added or taken away, primarily around social media. And reason being, there's so much happening now that it's hard to monitor. Colin put it best where our kids are on our phones. We used to start fires and our parents would get mad, right? Now our kids are on our phones and we can't even tell what they're doing. With that, teachers are now influencers, and there's a lot of social media access out there. And so trying to find the wording and the way in which we can protect not just MA kids, but all minors in how we would advise our teachers, whoever that may be, that might want to put themselves on social media, how they're going to really monitor their pages, differentiate themselves from MA, and make sure that MA students are not following their pages, or MA students are not part of it, but also minors in general. And so that one right there is I'm going to call that a work in progress, but I would love any feedback from the board on how to word that.
It's interesting you brought that up. I was going to ask that, but I didn't know if it belonged in this document or in the documents that you were referring to that the principals give as procedural to, I don't really know the difference, but I have thought of that many times as far as there being either a policy or just strong recommendations of how staff and teachers conduct themselves on social media, whether or not they friend students, parents, how they represent the school, what say we have in that versus what is up to them as a personal citizen, all of those things I have thought of a lot.
Yeah, I think it's good to have it as a policy. And again, I'm up for any debate or discussion on this. The only reason is because it gives the school a little bit of leverage to really help keep kids safe. And in my opinion, we keep them safe whether they're in this building or whether they're out there. And anyone who works for us is a representative of us. Can we dictate everything they put on social media? Absolutely not. If it's in the name of MA, we most certainly can. If it's to keep kids safe, that to me that's policy worthy in the sense that I don't want my 14-year-old instant messaging with one of her teachers. I'm going to hard pass on that. They can come through me as a parent. But that, to me, though, it provides clear-cut guidelines. Because I wouldn't want any teacher to stumble into, a big old pile of quicksand, just not knowing that he or she did it. Again, though, I feel like the wording there is rough, and I'd love for a second or third or fourth set of eyes. And I did have legal go through all of this. Joshua and I really focused mainly on the paid leave. So I do want to stress that. So the wording throughout the rest of it could use a little more looks.
I appreciate that. I don't necessarily find the language rough. I find it direct and very explicit in the sense that it's very clear. So the board may disagree with that.
I tend to be a little direct, so.
So, Krista, are you asking us to approve this as is, or are you asking us to review those sections?
I would love for you to review the sections, especially the ones that Ms. Hoyda brought up. The staff leave, that one would be the one that if we can segment it out just to kind of get the green light for us to be able to put that in, that would be lovely. If you have to approve it as a whole document, we probably can put it off a little bit. I would love to have those staff leave policies in place so that I can relay that to all of our teachers and our staff.
Short of the conflict resolution portion, if we were to do a strike through of that and replace that with the 1518A reference point, are there other items on here that you would be uncomfortable passing tonight or feel uninformed on to be able to pass tonight?
I don't have any other concerns to bring forward.
I'm comfortable knowing that Joshua Miller was involved with this, and my understanding was for some time. So he has laid eyes on this multiple times.
Well, the document that we have right now, though, it's sort of not ready to be passed. It includes, comments. It's like not all formatted the same. There's places where we have different font sizes, the way paragraphs are done. There's also like bullet points where they're blank. And so I didn't know if there was something that was supposed to be there. I don't want someone to sort of infer that something else is supposed to be there. I mean, I'm not sure if it still feels like a draft to me, but I do understand that you need direction for personal leave because people need to take personal leave.
And I will speak to the formatting. It was transferred from a Google Doc into a Word doc, and the formatting went, it was unexpected, like one of my children. And I will say this, though, that when we go through when you can see it on a Google Doc, it looks very different than on the Word doc. It just transferred poorly. I'm happy to get that all cleaned up for you guys and get it sent to you. I could probably get that done by Monday, so.
So let me ask, you went over a few different sections here. You talked about personal leave, FMLA and bereavement, purchase orders, grievance, student-teacher communication, social media. Did I miss one of the sections that you want us to review? Okay.
I think there's enough uncertainty in this right now that I'll ask the question board, do we feel comfortable passing the paid leave portion of this, and we can come back to this in October for the rest of the employee handbook.
I'll answer just for me, and that I would rather not pass this today. I understand that we want to get that personal leave out as soon as possible, but we might be able to make this a priority to review those certain sections and have this reformatted for us, and then it's ready to go in a final state in October.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Sorry, the computer died.
Yes, that's okay.
Thing right here. Okay, we're just discussing, Joe was just discussing, whether we feel comfortable passing it tonight or not.
I understand.
All right, Ms. Pelley, any input from you gentlemen down there? What would y'all like to do? We could kick this off, table it to maybe even as quick as next week for a potential special meeting.
That's what I was going to think about, potentially adding it to the special meeting.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay. Ms. Pelley, we will table this for now. I don't have a for sure date, but I was going to need to call a special meeting next week on some other stuff, so I will make sure to have this to the agenda. I just have to confirm with legal counsel on what night he will be available. So, all right, let's move on to our curriculum policies. Board, those have been distributed to you electronically. At the last board meeting, we had requested that the governance committee review these curriculum policies and bring back any revisions to those. And so I'll just turn it over to you, Mr. Buczkowski, on those.
Yes, thank you, Ryan. And, Karen and I did review these curriculum policies, and what you see here in the board packet is ready to go. I do want to say that for policy IJMA, let me get that up here as well, that we have a new header that Ms. McClellan came up with that is really representative by policy IIACMA. And so the one that you see for IJMA, that sort of header format only, Ms. McClellan came up with the other one. So it doesn't really affect the content of the policy at all. Since they're ready to be approved, if the board would like to approve them, it's possible that later when governance presents other policies that will require approval, we could re-present IJMA with the updated header and just quickly have it changed at that time.
And the difference is, for those that are not looking right at this, it just has more information, correct? So it gives it the category, the author, the approval, just more information on each policy as a header.
Yeah, correct. It's mostly cosmetic with a little bit more information in that table.
Outside of that, anything else from governance that you guys would like to see addressed?
I think what you see here we've approved. I believe we had a few very minor changes in reviewing these. Other than that, they're mostly untouched from what was presented by curriculum.
Terrific. Ms. Horta, anything to add?
Yeah, the only addition other than changes that were agreed to by the board in the last board meeting, and I did go back and listen to make sure I got those correct. The only addition was in the policy labeled IJ-MA. The last sentence in that second paragraph, which is called responsibilities, I did add the phrase unless specifically stated otherwise, just to add some clarity. But otherwise, there are no changes other than what the board had agreed to last meeting.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Sorda. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the curriculum policies as presented tonight?
Yes, Ryan, I can do that. Move to approve curriculum policies IIAC-MA, IIAC-E1-MA, IIAC-E2-MA, IJ-MA, and IJ-E1-MA.
I'll second.
All right, Mrs. Clinton has seconded that motion. Board, that opens it up for any further discussion.
I just want to say thanks for all the work that's been put into these. They've been needed, and they're going to provide great parameters for our staff and information for our parents to review as well.
I agree with that too, Lindsay. I'm excited that these are finally going to pass, and curriculum and the subject matter, it's a constantly moving target, and these are primarily to protect our kids, to what MA's goals, vision, principles are. So, and this will greatly help our staff too, and protect them in what they're choosing to put in front of our children's eyes and brains. So anyway, I'm excited about this, a lot of hard work, and this is good. So I encourage our community to take a look at this.
Board, anything further? All right, hearing none, I'll call the vote. Mrs. Belisle, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Buczkowski?
Aye.
Mr. Carley?
Aye.
Mrs. Clinton?
Aye.
Mrs. Horda?
Aye.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ryan Graham votes aye. That motion carries. Thank you guys on governance for the work on this. That will lead us into our next agenda item, which is Data Wrangler by Clockworks Incorporated. So Mr. Gustafson, our CFO, was going to be presenting on this tonight, but has asked me to do so in his absence. I did see that we have a representative from Clockworks here tonight. I'm not going to put him on the spot, but if I really mess this up, you will be able to correct me. So what is Data Wrangler? This is a company that is new to Colorado, and what they do is attach hardware and software to our electric meters at both campuses in order to better manage our demand charges. Demand charges are the amount the utility companies charges to each business entity for making power available at peak consumption. Demand charge is not the kilowatt hour electric consumption, but is part of our total energy cost. What we can do as a school is exercise our right to reduce our demand and consumption costs through proper energy optimization. That is where Data Wrangler comes into play. They proactively manage when we turn equipment on and off, and this can effectively lower our electric bill in a significant manner by reducing energy costs by 10 to 20%. Board, our initial upfront cost on this is $4,850 for equipment and $500 per month for managing. According to Mr. Gustafson, these fees could be recouped in as few as 3 to 4 months per what was shared with me. The school should realize savings from this contract for a long time if approved by the board tonight. Did you guys get an opportunity to review the Data Wrangler Clockworks contract? Is there any questions on that? Okay. That's easy enough. Then I will motion to approve the Data Wrangler by Clockworks contract for the 23-24 fiscal year.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, Ryan, I just have a few questions. So the only information that we have about this on the board is this contract and then Glenn's comments. Did anyone else on the board have any other information about this?
I got online and did some research and some reading on the company. But I mean, that's the extent of my knowledge is what I was reading online and some of the reviews about the company.
Do any of us know, has Glenn used them before? Did Glenn request this?
So there's other schools in Colorado that are using them. And as we know, Glenn works with the CDE. So he's tied in with some other educational institutions that are already using this. So he said this is something that we need to look at for Monument Academy.
And apparently, he approves of it, right? This is his recommendation.
This is his recommendation.
Okay.
He absolutely approves of this and would have presented on it tonight had he been here, but that's not the case, so.
Yeah.
It seems like just a huge money saver over time. I think it's, like he said, 3 to 4 months to recoup the initial investment. And then moving forward, it should be quite a bit of money.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, then I will call the vote. Mrs. Belisle.
Aye.
Mr. Buczkowski.
Aye.
Mr. Carley.
Aye.
Mrs. Clinton.
Aye.
Mrs. Hoyda.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Ryan Graham votes aye. That motion carries. And that'll lead us to our next item on the agenda, which was the preschool policies and procedures. So board, we approved, I don't have the date in front of me, these policies and procedures for preschool. And there was some revisions that were presented by Mrs. Hayes and communication with Mr. Walker, Mrs. McClellan. They are in agreement with what was presented tonight, but I will draw your attention to the behavior and discipline page, and I don't have printouts for you guys, so if you want to pull this up online.
Is it in the board packet?
It was emailed.
Yep, we sent it out.
The updated board packet?
It was not in the updated board packet. It would have been in a secondary email.
I got it.
All right, so I went through and looked at all the changes under behavior and discipline. So I will bring your attention to the first paragraph.
What page?
This would be page 3.
Thank you.
So on page 3, there was a strike through from the previous policy. Last paragraph, it would say, and love, or excuse me, last sentence in the first paragraph, and love and logic principles, and then the domain in the classroom. That was struck through. The next would be the 2 bullet points for recognizing and allowing were struck through, and that was combined into 1 paragraph, and the word and was added, so it would say recognizing and highlighting positive choices made by students and allowing students to learn via natural consequences within safety constraints and guidelines. Rules for behavior are kept simple and to a minimum. The next would be the next sentence. There was a strike through of the word rules replaced with social contract. This would be the paragraph underneath that. There was a strike through of the last sentence. If a child's behavior is unable to be corrected, the following steps will take place. And then A, B, C were struck through as well, and that is because we do not have a mental health specialist or consultant for pre-K. So that was the context to the change, the revision on this policy. So those are what have been presented to us tonight. Any questions or discussions on that? I'll need a minute to look it over.
And Ryan, these other sections were just untouched?
They were not touched. Mrs. Hayes, is that correct? Okay. All right, so I will go ahead and make a motion then to approve provisions as presented by the preschool director, Mrs. Hayes, under behavior and discipline in the classroom policies, procedures, and philosophy manual for preschool.
Second.
Any further discussion, board? All right, hearing none, Ms. Belisle, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Buchkowski?
Aye.
Mr. Carley?
Aye.
Mrs. Clinton?
Aye.
Mrs. Horta?
Aye.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ryan Graham votes aye. That motion is approved. Mrs. Hayes, if you would update the website with the new, that would be terrific. Thank you for getting that to us. That completes our items requiring board discussion action, moves us into board comments and announcements. We'll turn this to you, Mrs. Clinton, for board member volunteers for October Cafe Chat.
Okay, so Craig and I completed the September chat, and we had a really great meeting with some parents addressing just different topics they wanted to discuss and had questions on, or areas they wanted to convey their support to us. So I highly encourage 2 other board members to take on a date for October. And you could, it's been brought to my attention by some of the parents as well that it would maybe be nice to mix up the date and time. We've been doing Wednesdays right after Carline, but maybe if 2 people want to try and do an afternoon time, like right after lunch or something on those lines, whatever works for your schedule. So who would like to do October's parent cafe chat?
Lindsay, I can do one of them.
I can too.
Okay, thank you guys. If you two could just figure out the date, and then I will include that in the board highlights. I do like to try to have those out by Monday, so compare calendars quickly, please.
All right, next item is the 2024 Spring Fundraiser Update. Would you like to lead that?
Sure. So our annual fundraiser has been scheduled for, everybody get your calendars out, Friday, April 19th. And it will be at the White Pine Ballroom at the Great Wolf Lodge. The theme this year is Light the Way for MA. Save the date, and more details on the event are forthcoming, so please keep an eye for more information to come out on Parent Square regarding what will be a really fun event.
Board, any further comments or announcements? Right, hearing none, that will move us into new business. It's a call for any new business that we may have for next meeting. Hearing none, I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone. And we have no citizen comments pertaining to non-agenda items.